The Midnight Architect, when genius awakens in sleep. Welcome. Pause for a moment. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Right now, in this very instant, your mind is preparing for something extraordinary. Have you ever wondered why some of humanity's greatest breakthroughs arrived not in moments of frantic work, but in the stillness of sleep? Why did the structure of the benzene ring reveal itself to Kekule in a dream of a serpent biting its tail? Why did the melody of Yesterday by Paul McCartney emerge from his sleeping mind, fully formed and complete? These are not coincidences. They are glimpses into the profound intelligence that awakens when your conscious mind finally rests. Before we begin this journey together, subscribe to the Relaxing Science channel, give this video a like, and share your location and the time right now. This helps us understand where our community of curious minds exists in this vast world. The human brain, that 3-pound universe nestled within your skull, operates according to rhythms most people never consciously recognize. When you sleep, you're not simply switching off. You are activating an entirely different mode of consciousness, one that processes information in ways your waking mind cannot replicate. This is not mystical thinking. This is neuroscience. This is the documented reality of how your brain reorganizes itself during the night. Throughout history, the most innovative minds understood something intuitively that science is only now beginning to fully explain. Thomas Edison famously napped during his workday, and he was not lazy. He was strategically accessing the creative potential that sleep provides. Nikola Tesla, despite his notorious insomnia, compensated with brief, intense periods of rest that allowed his mind to process the electromagnetic theories that would revolutionize the world. Salvador Dalí developed an entire technique to capture the exact moment between wakefulness and sleep, where his mind generated surreal imagery that became some of the most recognizable art of the 20th century. These were not exceptions. They were masters who understood the architecture of sleep and how to navigate it for creative advantage. When you enter sleep, your brain does not simply become quiet. Instead, it shifts into a state of heightened activity in different regions. Your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logical thinking and critical judgment, gradually reduces its activity. Simultaneously, regions associated with memory integration, emotional processing, and associative thinking become increasingly active. This shift is not a malfunction. It is an upgrade. Your brain is reorganizing itself for tasks that require lateral thinking, unexpected connections, and the kind of insight that feels like it arrives from nowhere. The science reveals something poetic. Your sleeping brain is a weaver. It takes the threads of your experiences, your knowledge, your observations from the day, and it begins to braid them together in novel ways. A conversation you had in the morning, a book you read last week, a problem you have been struggling with for months, a piece of music you heard years ago. All of these exist as separate threads in your memory. But during sleep, particularly during the REM phase, your brain begins to find connections between these threads that your waking mind never could have consciously constructed. This process is called memory consolidation, and it is one of the most important functions sleep serves. But it goes beyond simply storing information. During sleep, your brain is performing a kind of creative reorganization. It is asking questions your conscious mind never formulates. What if this idea combined with that concept? How could this memory inform that problem? What new pattern emerges when these seemingly unrelated pieces are woven together? The creative genius is not someone born with a special brain. The creative genius is someone whose sleep architecture allows for optimal memory consolidation and neural reorganization. This means that by understanding how sleep works, by respecting its rhythms, and by learning to optimize your sleep, you can access the same wellspring of creativity that produced the world's greatest innovations. Throughout this exploration, we will move deeper into the mechanisms that make this possible. We will examine the electrical storms that light up your brain during sleep. We will understand the chemistry of dreaming and how specific neurotransmitters unlock imaginative capacity. We will look at historical figures who consciously manipulated their sleep to maximize creativity. And we will learn practical approaches to harmonizing your own sleep with your creative potential. But first, understand this fundamental truth. Your sleeping brain is not resting. It is working. It is thinking in ways your waking consciousness cannot access. It is solving problems while you are unconscious. It is generating ideas that will feel revelatory when you awaken. The night is not empty time. The night is when your most profound work begins. The question is not whether sleep enhances creativity. Science has settled that question. The question now is, are you honoring your sleep enough to allow your genius to emerge? Are you giving your brain the conditions it needs to perform this extraordinary nightly reorganization? This is what we will explore together in the quietness of this moment, as we journey into the neuroscience of sleeping minds and the dreams that shape innovation. The sleeping brain's electrical symphony. How neural patterns create innovation. Your brain, even in sleep, is never silent. If you could somehow hear the electrical activity of a sleeping mind, you would perceive a symphony of extraordinary complexity. Billions of neurons are firing in coordinated patterns, creating waves of electrical activity that sweep across your brain in rhythmic pulses. These are not random firings. They are organized, purposeful, and essential to the creative process that occurs while you dream. Modern neuroscience uses a tool called electroencephalography, or EEG, to measure these electrical patterns. When researchers attach electrodes to the scalp of a sleeping person, they can observe the brain's activity displayed as waves on a monitor. These waves tell a story. They reveal the different stages of sleep, each with its own distinct electrical signature. And remarkably, each stage serves a different function in the creative process. During the lightest stages of sleep, your brain produces faster, smaller waves called beta waves. These waves are similar to the patterns you produce when you are awake and focused. But as you descend deeper into sleep, these waves slow down. You enter a state where larger, slower waves dominate. These are theta waves and delta waves, and they represent a fundamentally different mode of brain operation. When you are producing delta waves, your consciousness has largely disconnected from the external world. Your sensory awareness has diminished. Your muscles are relaxed. Your body is in a state of deep rest. This deep sleep is crucial for physical restoration. Your body repairs muscle tissue, consolidates procedural memories, and clears metabolic waste from your brain. But this is not where creativity primarily emerges. Creativity, that spark of novel thinking and unexpected connection, happens in a different state entirely. It happens during REM sleep, when your brain produces a pattern of electrical activity that resembles wakefulness far more than it resembles deep sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement, named for the distinctive feature that occurs during this stage. Your eyes move rapidly back and forth beneath your closed eyelids, as if you are watching something unfold before you. Simultaneously, your brain is producing fast, desynchronized electrical activity. Your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logic and critical thinking, shows reduced activity compared to wakefulness. Your anterior cingulate cortex, involved in emotional processing and attention, becomes highly active. Your visual cortex activates intensely, creating the visual landscapes of your dreams. Your motor cortex, which controls movement, is essentially offline, which is why you do not act out your dreams, despite the intensity of the movements you dream you are making. This electrical pattern is precisely calibrated for creative thinking. The reduction in prefrontal activity means that your critical mind, the inner voice that says that will never work or that is too strange, has temporarily stepped back. Your logical defenses are lowered. Simultaneously, the heightened activity in emotional and associative regions means your brain is making connections based on emotional resonance and loose association rather than strict logic. This combination creates the perfect environment for novel ideas to emerge. Neuroscientists studying creative individuals have observed something fascinating. When creative people are in REM sleep, their brains show particularly robust activity in specific networks. The default mode network, a set of brain regions that activate when you are not focused on the external world, becomes especially coordinated during REM sleep in creative individuals. This network includes the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and regions deep in the brain's temporal lobes. These areas become synchronized in ways that allow for the kind of free association and imaginative recombination that generates novel ideas. Consider what happens when you are trying to solve a difficult problem while awake. You approach it logically, you break it down into components, you examine each piece systematically. This is valuable, but it is also limiting. Your conscious mind tends to follow well-worn neural pathways. It approaches problems the way you have always approached them. Your brain, in its waking state, is efficient but somewhat rigid. It is designed for survival and immediate problem solving, not for radical innovation. But when your brain enters REM sleep, this rigidity dissolves. The neural pathways that are normally most active and efficient become less dominant. Instead, your brain explores pathways that are less frequently traveled. It makes associations that would seem nonsensical in waking life. A visual image from a dream might combine with an abstract concept you were thinking about days ago. A melody might merge with a color. A personal memory might interweave with a completely unrelated piece of knowledge. These strange combinations, these illogical juxtapositions, are precisely where creativity lives. The electrical symphony of your sleeping brain is not producing chaos, even though the patterns might seem random to an outside observer. The brain is operating according to its own logic, a logic of association and emotional resonance rather than linear reasoning. This logic is exquisitely suited to creative recombination. It allows your brain to break apart established categories and reassemble the pieces in new configurations. This is why sleep deprivation is so destructive to creativity. Even though many people believe they are more creative when sleep deprived, the fatigue might produce a kind of disinhibition, a loosening of normal constraints. But this is not the same as the organized electrical activity of REM sleep. Sleep deprivation does not produce the coordinated neural patterns that allow for genuine creative insight. It produces a kind of chaotic mental state that feels loose, but lacks the coherence necessary to generate truly innovative ideas. The electrical patterns of sleep are not uniform throughout the night. Your brain cycles through different stages in a predictable rhythm. Early in the night, deep sleep predominates. Your brain produces long, slow delta waves. As the night progresses, the balance shifts. REM sleep becomes longer and more frequent. By the end of the night, you might spend 30 or 40 minutes in a single continuous REM period. This progression is not accidental. Your brain is strategically reserving the most creative sleep for the latter part of the night, when your mind has already been through the restoration work of deep sleep. This means that if you cut your sleep short, if you wake up before completing a full night's sleep, you are specifically depriving yourself of the REM sleep that generates creative insights. You are removing the very stage most essential to innovation. This is why sleeping 6 hours instead of 8 is not a minor reduction. It is a significant loss of the creative processing that occurs in your brain's electrical symphony. REM sleep and the creative spark. Where dreams become ideas. The moment you enter REM sleep, your brain begins a process that is almost impossible to replicate while awake. Your consciousness shifts into a state that is simultaneously vivid and illogical, emotionally intense, yet somehow accepting of the strangest circumstances. You find yourself in landscapes that should be impossible, interacting with people who are simultaneously themselves and someone else, navigating narratives that shift without warning. This is the realm of dreams, and it is here that creativity flourishes in its most pure and undiluted form. REM sleep typically accounts for about 20 to 25% of your total sleep time in adults. This means that if you sleep 8 hours, you spend roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours in REM sleep each night. But this time is not distributed evenly. The first REM period of the night might last only 5 to 10 minutes. As the night progresses, REM periods become longer and more frequent. The final REM period, the one that occurs just before you wake, can last 30 to 40 minutes or even longer. This architecture is crucial to understanding how creativity emerges from sleep. During REM sleep, your brain is flooded with specific neurochemicals that are largely absent during wakefulness. The most important of these are acetylcholine and norepinephrine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, that plays a central role in memory formation and in activating cortical areas. During REM sleep, acetylcholine levels are high, which keeps your cortex active and engaged. Norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter associated with attention and arousal, is nearly absent during REM sleep. This combination creates a unique neurochemical state that has no parallel in waking consciousness. The absence of norepinephrine is particularly significant. During wakefulness, norepinephrine helps you focus attention. It narrows your mental spotlight. It allows you to concentrate on what is immediately relevant and ignore what is not. But during REM sleep, with norepinephrine absent, your attention becomes diffuse. Your mind wanders freely. It makes associations without the constraints of focused attention. This diffuse attention is essential to creative thinking. It allows your brain to see connections between distant concepts, to notice patterns that would be invisible to a focused mind. The dreams you experience during REM sleep are not merely the byproduct of random neural firing. This was once the prevailing theory, but modern neuroscience has revealed something far more sophisticated. Your dreams are your brain's way of processing information, of integrating new experiences with existing knowledge, of exploring possibilities and potential responses to challenges. Your dreams are a form of thinking, a kind of mental simulation that allows your brain to rehearse, to imagine, to recombine and reimagine. When you dream, you are essentially running thought experiments. You are asking your brain to imagine scenarios and play them out. Sometimes these scenarios are replays of your actual experiences, but often they are elaborations, combinations, and reimaginings of your experiences. Your brain takes the raw material of your life and constructs alternative narratives. It asks, what if I had responded differently? What if I combined this skill with that knowledge? What if I approached this problem from an entirely different angle? This imaginative rehearsal is profoundly creative. It is the same mental process that writers use when they imagine characters and scenarios. It is the same process that scientists use when they construct thought experiments and mental models. It is the same process that inventors use when they imagine how a device might work before building it. Your brain, during REM sleep, is performing all of these creative functions simultaneously, without the constraints of logic or probability. One of the most fascinating discoveries in sleep research is that the content of your dreams is related to the creative insights that emerge after you wake. When researchers have awakened people during REM sleep and asked them to describe their dreams, then followed up to see what creative work those people produced in the following days, they found a correlation. The emotional themes of the dreams, the kinds of associations being made, the unexpected juxtapositions and transformations happening in the dream world, all of these relate to the creative breakthroughs that follow. This suggests that your dreams are not random. They are not noise generated by a sleeping brain. They are a focused process of creative recombination. Your brain, during REM sleep, is specifically working on the problems and challenges that occupy your waking mind. It is approaching them from new angles. It is making connections that your logical mind would dismiss. Consider the experience of falling asleep while thinking about a difficult problem, then waking with a sudden insight. This is not a coincidence. Your brain has spent the night in REM sleep, approaching that problem from multiple angles, making associations you never consciously considered. When you wake, you suddenly have access to the conclusions your sleeping brain reached. The insight feels like it came from nowhere, because it came from a mode of thinking that operates outside your conscious awareness. This is why many creative professionals deliberately use sleep as part of their creative process. Before going to bed, they consciously focus on a problem they are trying to solve. They might write it down. They might speak it aloud. They might hold the problem in their mind as they drift towards sleep. Then they sleep. During the night, their brain works on that problem in REM sleep. When they wake, they often have new insights, new perspectives, new ideas. The creative potential of REM sleep is not limited to problem solving. It extends to all forms of creative expression. Artists often report that their best ideas come during sleep or in that twilight state between sleep and wakefulness. Musicians describe melodies arriving fully formed in dreams. Writers describe characters and plot twists emerging from their dreams with a vividness and originality they could never have consciously constructed. This is because REM sleep activates the brain's imaginative and associative capacities while simultaneously reducing the critical, evaluative functions that constrain creative expression. When you are awake, your mind constantly evaluates your thoughts. Is this idea good enough? Is this too strange? Will people judge me for this? These evaluative functions are valuable for many purposes, but they are death to creativity. They cause you to censor your own ideas before they are fully formed. During REM sleep, this censorship is lifted. Your brain is free to imagine the wildest possibilities, to make the most unexpected connections, to recombine ideas in ways that violate all the rules of logical thinking. And paradoxically, it is in this state of unconstrained imagination that genuine creativity emerges. The rules you learn while awake, the knowledge you accumulate, the skills you develop, all of these are still present in your dreaming brain. But they are being manipulated according to different principles. They are being combined and recombined without the constraints that typically bind them together. Tesla's insomnia and Edison's nap, historical proof that sleep shapes invention. The history of human innovation is inseparable from the history of sleep. The great inventors, artists, and scientists who shaped our world did not accidentally discover the relationship between sleep and creativity. They consciously studied it, they experimented with it, they built their creative practice around it. Their lives are not just historical records, they are evidence of how sleep and genius intertwine. Nikola Tesla is perhaps the most famous historical figure associated with sleeplessness. Tesla was renowned for his ability to work for extended periods without sleep. He would sometimes work through the night on his experiments and calculations, driven by an almost obsessive focus on his ideas. Yet Tesla also spoke extensively about the importance of brief periods of rest. He did not view sleep as a luxury or a weakness. He viewed it as a necessary reset for his mind. Tesla would often take short naps, sometimes only a few minutes long, and he reported that these brief periods of rest allowed him to return to his work with renewed clarity and focus. What Tesla understood intuitively, modern neuroscience has now confirmed. Even brief naps can provide significant cognitive benefits, particularly for creative thinking. A 20-minute nap can enhance memory consolidation and improve divergent thinking, the kind of thinking that generates multiple solutions and creative approaches. A 90-minute nap, long enough to include a full REM cycle, can produce even more substantial creative benefits. Tesla was not working despite his irregular sleep. He was working in harmony with his sleep patterns, using brief periods of rest strategically to maintain his creative capacity. Thomas Edison, another towering figure in the history of innovation, took a different approach to sleep. Edison was famous for his napping habit. He would often fall asleep at his workbench, sometimes for just a few minutes, then wake refreshed and return to work. Edison famously said that sleep was a waste of time, yet paradoxically, he scheduled regular naps into his day. This apparent contradiction reveals a deeper understanding. Edison recognized that sleep, or more specifically, brief periods of REM sleep and the neural reorganization that occurs during naps, were essential to his creative output. He was not sleeping less than other people. He was sleeping differently, distributing his sleep throughout the day rather than consolidating it into a single night. Edison's approach aligns with what modern chronobiologists and sleep researchers have discovered about polyphasic sleep, or sleep distributed across multiple periods throughout the day. While the consolidated 8-hour night is the norm for most modern humans, polyphasic sleep patterns were common in pre-industrial societies and are still practiced in some cultures. Some evidence suggests that polyphasic sleep can provide sufficient rest while potentially offering advantages for certain types of work, particularly creative work. However, Edison's approach should not be romanticized. He was able to maintain this pattern because his work schedule was flexible and self-determined. Most people working in modern employment structures require consolidated sleep. Salvador Dalí, the surrealist artist, took yet another approach to sleep and creativity. Dalí deliberately cultivated a technique he called the paranoiac critical method, which involved entering a hypnagogic state, the twilight zone between sleep and wakefulness. Dalí would sit in a chair holding a key loosely in his hand. As he drifted towards sleep, his hand would relax. The key would fall and strike the floor, waking him. In that brief moment between sleep and wakefulness, Dalí reported experiencing vivid, surreal imagery with remarkable clarity and vividness. He would immediately sketch or paint what he had seen before the image faded. Dalí's technique is not just artistic fancy, it is a sophisticated manipulation of the brain's transition into sleep. The hypnagogic state, that moment when you are beginning to lose consciousness but still retain some awareness, is a time when your brain exhibits unusual electrical activity. The boundary between wakefulness and sleep is not sharp. It is a gradual transition, and during this transition, your brain is in a uniquely creative state. Your logical mind is beginning to shut down, but your imaginative capacities are heightened. You experience vivid imagery without the constraints of logical evaluation. This is why many people report their most creative ideas occurring in the moments just before sleep or just after waking. Ludwig van Beethoven, one of history's greatest composers, was intensely aware of the connection between sleep and musical creativity. Beethoven kept a sketchbook with him at all times, and he would record musical ideas that came to him during transitions between wakefulness and sleep. Beethoven would often take walks, and during these walks, he would enter a kind of meditative state that allowed musical ideas to emerge. Then he would rush home to write them down. Beethoven understood that the most precious creative moments were not those of focused work, but those of relaxed awareness, where the conscious mind was not forcing solutions but allowing solutions to emerge. August Kekulé, the chemist who discovered the structure of the benzene ring, had a dream that changed chemistry forever. Kekulé had been struggling for years to determine the structure of benzene. The chemical formula was known, but how the atoms were arranged remained a mystery. Then one night, Kekulé dreamed of a serpent biting its own tail. In the dream, the serpent was coiled in a circle, its tail in its mouth. Kekulé woke with a sudden understanding. The benzene ring was not a linear chain of atoms, but a circular structure, each atom bonded to the next, forming a complete circle. This insight, which came directly from his dream, was revolutionary. It was not derived through logical deduction. It emerged from his dreaming mind's ability to make a visual metaphor and apply it to a chemical problem. Kekulé's experience is not unique. Many scientists and mathematicians throughout history have reported that their most important insights came during sleep or in dreams. Dmitri Mendeleev, who developed the periodic table of elements, reported that the structure of the table came to him in a dream. Henri Poincaré, the mathematician, described his creative process as involving a period of intense conscious work, followed by a period of rest and unconscious incubation, during which his brain would reorganize his thinking and produce novel solutions. These historical examples are not anomalies, they are evidence of a consistent pattern. The human brain, when given sufficient sleep and given the opportunity to enter deep REM states, produces creativity that conscious effort alone cannot achieve. The great innovators understood this. They respected sleep. They studied their own sleep patterns. They experimented with different approaches to rest. They did not view sleep as lost time. They viewed sleep as essential to their creative work. The modern world has largely abandoned this wisdom. We live in a culture that valorizes constant work, that treats sleep as a luxury, that views resting as laziness. We work late into the night, we wake early. We consume stimulants to maintain consciousness. We sacrifice sleep for productivity. And paradoxically, in doing so, we sacrifice the very thing that makes genuine productivity and creativity possible. We deprive ourselves of the sleep that our brains need to generate novel ideas, to consolidate learning, to make the unexpected connections that characterize innovation. If we want to access the creative potential that Tesla, Edison, Dalí, Beethoven, and Kekulé all accessed, we must return to respecting sleep. We must understand that sleep is not the opposite of productivity. Sleep is the foundation of creativity. The most productive, most innovative people are not those who sleep least. They are those who sleep most strategically, most respectfully, most aligned with their brain's natural rhythms. The chemistry of dreaming, neurotransmitters that unlock imagination. Your brain is a chemical factory Every thought, every emotion, every creative impulse is the result of molecules moving through your neural tissue, carrying signals from one neuron to the next. When you dream, this chemical factory shifts into a completely different mode of operation. The balance of neurochemicals changes. Some chemicals that are abundant during wakefulness become scarce. Others that are scarce during the day flood your brain during sleep. These chemical shifts are not incidental. They are fundamental to the creative potential of dreams. The most important neurochemical in dreams is acetylcholine. During REM sleep, acetylcholine levels in your brain increase dramatically. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that plays crucial roles in attention, memory formation, and the activation of cortical areas. When acetylcholine levels are high, your cortex, the outer layer of your brain where higher-order thinking occurs, becomes highly active. Your brain is engaged. It is processing information, it is making connections. But the quality of those connections is fundamentally different from the connections your brain makes during wakefulness, because the neurochemical context is different. During wakefulness, acetylcholine works in concert with another neurotransmitter called norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is associated with alertness, attention, and arousal. It helps you focus. It narrows your mental spotlight. It allows you to concentrate on what is immediately relevant and ignore what is not. But during REM sleep, norepinephrine levels drop dramatically. This is one of the most distinctive features of the REM state. Your brain has acetylcholine without norepinephrine. You have activation without focus. You have engagement without direction. This combination creates a state of mind that is uniquely suited to creative thinking. Your brain is active and engaged, but it is not focused on any particular thing. It is free to wander. It is free to make associations based on emotional resonance and loose connection rather than logical necessity. Your mind is like a river that has broken free from its banks, flowing in multiple directions at once, finding unexpected channels and pathways. Another crucial neurochemical in dreams is serotonin. Serotonin levels are low during REM sleep. During wakefulness, serotonin plays an important role in mood regulation, in the sense of well-being, in the ability to evaluate and judge. Serotonin is, in a sense, your brain's quality control system. It helps you evaluate whether your thoughts are good, whether your ideas are valuable, whether your actions are appropriate. But during REM sleep, when serotonin is low, this quality control system is offline. You lose the ability to judge your own thoughts. You lose the capacity to evaluate whether an idea is socially acceptable or logically sound. You simply experience the idea without judgment. This is why dreams are so often bizarre and illogical. Your brain is not making logical errors. Your brain is simply not running the logical evaluation systems that would normally constrain your thinking. You dream that you can fly. You are not confused about whether humans can actually fly. Your brain is simply not engaging the reality checking system that would normally prevent you from imagining something physically impossible. In the absence of this reality checking, your brain is free to imagine anything. And this freedom is precisely what creativity requires. Creativity requires the ability to imagine things that do not yet exist, to violate the rules that normally constrain thinking, to combine ideas in ways that logic would normally forbid. The creative person, when awake, has learned to suppress or override the quality control systems that would normally prevent them from entertaining unconventional ideas. But during REM sleep, when serotonin is naturally low, this suppression happens automatically. Your brain is naturally in a more creative state. Dopamine, another crucial neurotransmitter, shows a complex pattern during sleep. Dopamine is associated with motivation, reward, and pleasure. It is also involved in the formation of new memories and in the consolidation of learning. During REM sleep, dopamine levels fluctuate. There are periods of dopamine release, particularly when you are dreaming about emotionally significant events. These dopamine releases are thought to be crucial to memory consolidation. They signal to your brain that this information is important and should be stored. But dopamine also plays a role in creative thinking. Dopamine is involved in the formation of novel associations. People with higher dopamine levels in certain brain regions tend to score higher on measures of creative thinking. Some researchers have suggested that the dopamine fluctuations during REM sleep may enhance the brain's ability to make novel associations, to see connections between disparate ideas that would not be obvious during wakefulness. The neurochemical state of REM sleep also involves changes in other important molecules. Glutamate, the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain, shows different patterns during REM sleep compared to wakefulness. GABA, the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, is also modulated differently. The balance between excitation and inhibition shifts. During wakefulness, your brain maintains a careful balance between these forces. During REM sleep, the balance shifts in ways that allow for more widespread neural activation and more diffuse patterns of brain activity. Histamine, a neuromodulator involved in maintaining wakefulness, is essentially absent during REM sleep. This is why you do not wake up during dreams, despite the high level of brain activity. Your brain is active, but it is not alert. It is not oriented toward the external world. It is turned inward, focused on its own internal processes. The neurochemical cocktail of REM sleep is so distinctive that it creates a state of consciousness that is fundamentally different from wakefulness. It is not simply a reduced version of wakefulness, as if your brain is just slowly shutting down. It is a completely different mode of operation, with its own logic, its own constraints, its own possibilities. And this alternative mode of operation is precisely where creativity flourishes. When you understand the neurochemistry of dreams, you begin to understand why sleep deprivation is so destructive to creativity. When you do not sleep, you do not get the neurochemical reset that occurs during sleep. Your brain remains in the neurochemical state of wakefulness, with high serotonin, high norepinephrine, low acetylcholine in the absence of the other chemicals. Your brain remains in its focused evaluative quality control mode. You cannot access the creative potential of the dreaming state because you are not allowing your brain to shift into the neurochemical configuration that enables that state. Fragmented sleep, fragmented genius, why sleep deprivation destroys creativity. There is a persistent myth in modern culture that sleep deprivation enhances creativity. It is a myth that has been perpetuated by countless stories of brilliant artists and thinkers who worked through the night, who sacrificed sleep for their art, who seemed to produce their greatest work when sleep-deprived. The myth is so pervasive that many people view sleep as something to overcome, something to minimize, something that interferes with their creative potential. This belief is not just wrong, it is profoundly destructive. The scientific evidence on sleep deprivation and creativity is unambiguous. Sleep deprivation impairs creativity. It reduces the ability to think divergently, to make novel associations, to generate multiple solutions to problems. It narrows thinking. It reduces the capacity for insight. It degrades the very cognitive functions that characterize creative thought. When you are sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, the area of your brain responsible for executive function and higher order thinking, becomes less efficient. This might seem like it would reduce the critical judgment that constrains creativity. In a sense, it does. Sleep deprivation does produce a kind of disinhibition, a loosening of normal constraints. But this is not the same as the disinhibition that occurs during REM sleep. Sleep deprivation, disinhibition, is the result of a brain that is not functioning optimally. It is impairment, not liberation. During REM sleep, your brain is in a specific neurochemical state that is optimized for creative thinking. During sleep deprivation, your brain is simply not getting that state, but it is also not functioning normally in wakefulness. Sleep-deprived wakefulness is a degraded state. Your brain is trying to maintain the functions of wakefulness, but it is doing so with insufficient resources. It is like trying to run a complex computer program on a system with depleted memory. The program might still run, but it runs poorly. The myth that sleep deprivation enhances creativity often arises from a misinterpretation of the experience of being sleep-deprived. When you are sleep-deprived, you do feel different. Your thoughts feel looser. Your inhibitions feel reduced. You might feel more impulsive, more willing to express unconventional ideas. You might feel more emotional, more reactive. These changes can feel like increased creativity, but research shows that this feeling is deceptive. When researchers study the actual creative output of sleep-deprived individuals, they find that the quality of their work suffers. Sleep-deprived people generate more ideas, but the ideas are not better, in fact they are often worse. Sleep-deprived people have a harder time evaluating their own ideas. They cannot distinguish between good ideas and poor ideas as effectively as well-rested people. So they might feel more creative, but they are not actually producing more creative work. The brain's creative networks, the neural systems that generate novel ideas and make unexpected connections, require adequate sleep to function optimally. When you do not sleep, these networks do not have time to reorganize themselves. Memory consolidation does not occur properly. The associative processes that link disparate ideas together cannot happen. Your brain is not in the neurochemical state that enables creative insight. You are operating in a state of neural exhaustion, not neural optimization. One of the most important aspects of sleep for creativity is what researchers call offline processing. Offline processing is the reorganization and integration of information that occurs when your brain is not focused on the external world. It occurs during sleep, and it is essential to the consolidation of memory and the formation of new associations. When you sleep, your brain takes the experiences and information from the day and integrates them with your existing knowledge. It makes connections, it reorganizes, it prepares your mind to understand and think about these experiences in new ways. If you do not sleep, this offline processing cannot occur. You accumulate experiences and information, but you do not integrate them. Your brain becomes increasingly fragmented. You have isolated pieces of knowledge and experience, but they are not woven together into a coherent understanding. This fragmentation is antithetical to creativity. Creativity requires the ability to make connections across domains, to see how ideas from one field might illuminate problems in another field. This kind of cross-domain thinking is exactly what offline processing during sleep enables. The effects of sleep deprivation on creativity are cumulative and progressive. A single night of lost sleep produces noticeable impairment. 2 nights of poor sleep produces more substantial degradation. Chronic sleep deprivation, the kind that results from consistently sleeping less than your biological need, produces significant and persistent impairment in creative thinking. The brain adapts to some extent, but this adaptation does not restore creative capacity. Instead, the brain adapts by reducing its expectations, by lowering its standards, by becoming satisfied with less novel, less innovative thinking. There is also a paradoxical effect of sleep deprivation on the perception of one's own creativity. Sleep-deprived people often feel more creative, more confident in their ideas, even though their actual creative output is worse. This is because sleep deprivation impairs your ability to accurately evaluate your own work. Your quality control systems are degraded. You cannot distinguish between a genuinely good idea and a mediocre idea as effectively, so you feel more creative even as you are actually being less creative. This has profound implications for how we structure our lives and our work. Many people sacrifice sleep to work longer hours, believing that more work time will produce more creative output. But this logic is flawed. The brain's creative capacity does not increase linearly with time spent working. In fact, beyond a certain point, additional work time without adequate sleep produces less creative output, not more. The brain needs sleep to consolidate learning, to reorganize information, to refresh its creative networks. Without sleep, additional work time is largely wasted. You are working with a degraded brain. You are producing less valuable work. You are moving backward, even as you believe you are moving forward. The evidence is clear. If you want to maximize your creative potential, you must prioritize sleep. You must give your brain the time it needs to undergo the offline processing that generates insight. You must allow your brain to enter the REM states where novel associations form. You must allow the neurochemical shifts of sleep to reset your brain's creative networks. Sleep is not lost time. Sleep is where your most important creative work occurs. The consolidation mystery: how your brain reorganizes information into breakthroughs. Every night, while you sleep, your brain performs a task of staggering complexity. It takes the vast amount of information you have encountered during the day, information that arrives as a chaotic stream of sensory input and conscious experience, and it begins to integrate this information with everything you already know. It reorganizes your memories. It strengthens some connections and weakens others. It creates new associations. It extracts patterns and principles from individual experiences. This process is called memory consolidation, and it is one of the most important functions sleep serves. Without consolidation, you could not learn. Without consolidation, you could not grow. And without consolidation, you could not create. Memory consolidation is not a single process that occurs in one location in the brain. It is a complex set of processes that unfold over time and involve multiple brain regions. When you first experience something, when you first learn something new, that information is stored in a fragile temporary form. The memory is initially dependent on the hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep in the brain that plays a crucial role in the formation of new memories. But this initial memory is unstable. It can be easily disrupted. It can be easily forgotten. During sleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, the brain engages in a process of consolidation that transforms this fragile temporary memory into a more stable, long-term memory. The information is gradually transferred from the hippocampus to the cortex, where it is integrated with existing knowledge. The cortex is the outer layer of the brain where complex thinking occurs, where knowledge is organized and synthesized. As information moves from the hippocampus to the cortex, it is not simply copied. It is reorganized. It is integrated. It is combined with related information. New connections form. This reorganization is crucial to creativity. When information is first experienced, it is discrete. It is separate. A fact you learned yesterday is isolated in your memory. A problem you encountered today is separate from the knowledge you accumulated years ago. But during sleep, particularly during the consolidation process, these separate pieces of information begin to connect. Your brain finds associations. It recognizes patterns. It sees how information from one domain might illuminate understanding in another domain. This is why many creative insights occur after sleep. You go to bed thinking about a problem. During the night, your brain consolidates the information related to that problem. It connects it with information from other domains. It explores possibilities. When you wake, you suddenly have access to these new connections. The insight feels like it arrived from nowhere, because it arrived from the unconscious work of your sleeping brain. Consolidation is not a passive process. It is not simply the storage of information. It is an active reorganization. During this reorganization, your brain makes choices about what information is important and what information is peripheral. It emphasizes some connections and de-emphasizes others. This process is influenced by emotion, by attention, by the significance of the information. Information that is emotionally charged, information that is related to your current concerns, information that you have consciously focused on, all of this receives priority in consolidation. This is why it helps to consciously focus on a problem before sleep. When you consciously focus on a problem, you signal to your brain that this information is important. During sleep, your brain will prioritize the consolidation of information related to that problem. Your brain will make connections related to that problem. When you wake, you will have insights related to that problem. The consolidation process also involves what researchers call systems consolidation. This is the process by which information gradually becomes independent of the hippocampus and becomes integrated into cortical networks. Early in this process, memories are hippocampus dependent. If you damage the hippocampus, you lose these memories. But as consolidation progresses, memories become cortex dependent. They are no longer dependent on the hippocampus. They have been integrated into broader networks of knowledge. At this point, the memory is more stable, more resistant to forgetting, and more available for use in thinking and reasoning. But there is also a more creative aspect of consolidation that goes beyond simply stabilizing memories. During consolidation, your brain does not just store information. It extracts principles. It recognizes patterns. It generates new insights based on the relationship between different pieces of information. This process is particularly active during REM sleep, when your brain is in a state that favors associative thinking and the formation of novel connections. One of the most interesting discoveries in sleep research is that consolidation can actually change the way you understand information. A fact that seemed isolated and discrete when you first learned it might, after consolidation during sleep, suddenly appear to be part of a larger pattern. A skill that seemed difficult and disconnected might, after sleep, integrate smoothly with other skills you possess. A problem that seemed unsolvable might, after sleep, appear to have an obvious solution that you simply had not seen before. This transformation of understanding is the basis of creative insight. Creativity is not the production of entirely new information. Creativity is the reorganization of existing information in novel ways. Your brain, during sleep, reorganizes your knowledge. It makes new connections, it sees new patterns. When you wake, you have access to this reorganized knowledge. You see possibilities you had not seen before. You understand relationships you had not understood before. You have insights that feel revelatory because they involve a genuine reorganization of your understanding. The consolidation process is also influenced by the emotional significance of information. Your brain prioritizes the consolidation of information that is emotionally charged. This is an evolutionary adaptation. Information that is emotionally significant is usually information that is important to your survival or well-being. Your brain has learned to prioritize the consolidation of emotionally significant information. This is why you remember emotionally charged events more vividly than neutral events. This is why you remember information that you care deeply about more effectively than information that seems irrelevant. For creativity, this has important implications. If you want your brain to prioritize the consolidation of information relevant to your creative work, you should engage with that information emotionally. You should care about it. You should find it interesting and compelling. You should think about it not just as abstract information, but as information that matters to you personally. When you do this, your brain will prioritize the consolidation of that information. Your sleeping brain will work on that information. Your waking brain will have insights related to that information. The consolidation mystery, then, is not really a mystery. It is a well-documented process by which your brain transforms the chaotic flow of experience into organized knowledge, and in doing so, creates the conditions for creative insight. Every night your brain is reorganizing itself. Every morning, you wake with a slightly different brain, with new connections, with new possibilities. This is not metaphorical. This is literal. Your brain physically changes during sleep. New connections form. The balance of neurochemical systems shifts. Your understanding reorganizes. And in this reorganization, creativity is born. Dalí's hypnagogic visions, the art of catching dreams at the edge of consciousness. There exists a peculiar threshold in the landscape of consciousness, a boundary between wakefulness and sleep that is neither fully one nor the other. This threshold is called the hypnagogic state, and it is a realm of extraordinary creative potential. It is the moment when your eyes begin to close, when your conscious mind is releasing its grip on reality, when your imagination is awakening even as your body begins to rest. This is the state that Salvador Dalí cultivated with deliberate precision, transforming it into an artistic technique that produced some of the most iconic and disturbing imagery of the 20th century. Dalí understood something that most people experience only accidentally and briefly. He understood that the hypnagogic state is a unique window into the creative potential of the dreaming brain, a window that remains partially open to conscious awareness. During normal sleep, you lose consciousness. You are no longer aware of what is happening in your mind, but in the hypnagogic state, you are partially aware. You are observing your mind as it transitions into sleep. You are witnessing the emergence of dream imagery while you still retain some capacity for conscious observation. Dalí's technique was elegantly simple. He would sit in a chair holding a key loosely in his hand. As he drifted towards sleep, his muscles would relax. His hand would relax. The key would fall from his fingers and strike the floor with a sharp sound. The sound would startle him awake, pulling him back from the edge of sleep. But crucially, he would wake in a state where he had just been experiencing the vivid imagery of the hypnagogic transition. He would immediately move to his easel or his notebook and begin to paint or draw what he had seen. What Dalí was doing was capturing the raw output of his dreaming brain, before it was filtered through conscious evaluation. The images he saw in the hypnagogic state were not constrained by logic or social acceptability. They were the product of a brain in transition, a brain that was beginning to shift into the neurochemical and electrical state of sleep, but was not yet fully asleep. The images were surreal, bizarre, often disturbing. They violated the laws of physics and the rules of composition. They combined elements that should not belong together. They were, in short, perfectly suited to expressing the unconscious, irrational aspects of human experience. But Dalí's technique reveals something important about the nature of consciousness and creativity. The hypnagogic state is not inaccessible to most people. Most people experience it every night, multiple times. The difference is that most people do not deliberately attend to it. Most people are too busy either maintaining consciousness or surrendering to sleep. They do not linger in the threshold. They do not observe their own transition. But if you consciously attend to the hypnagogic state, if you try to maintain awareness while drifting towards sleep, you can observe the emergence of dream imagery. You can witness your brain's transition into the creative state of sleep. The hypnagogic state is neurologically distinct from both wakefulness and sleep. Your brain is producing some of the electrical patterns characteristic of sleep, particularly theta waves, which are associated with drowsiness and the early stages of sleep. But your brain is also maintaining some of the electrical activity characteristic of wakefulness. Your consciousness is not fully offline. You are in a state of reduced consciousness, but not absent consciousness. You are aware of what is happening, but your awareness is different from your normal waking awareness. It is more passive, more receptive, less evaluative. During this state, your visual cortex becomes increasingly active. You begin to experience visual hallucinations, which are not truly hallucinations in the pathological sense, but rather the emergence of dream imagery, while you are still partially conscious. These images arise from your brain's associative networks, from the connections between memories and concepts, from the emotional resonances and patterns that your brain has been processing. They are not random. They are expressions of your mind's structure, your concerns, your preoccupations, your creative potential. The hypnagogic state is also a state in which your critical mind has partially shut down. Your evaluative functions, the systems that normally judge whether an idea is good or bad, acceptable or unacceptable, logical or illogical, are partially offline. This is why hypnagogic imagery is often so bizarre and uninhibited. Your brain is producing images without the constraint of evaluation. It is free to imagine the most unlikely combinations, the most violation of conventional logic. Many creative individuals throughout history have been aware of the creative potential of the hypnagogic state. Thomas Edison, in addition to his napping practice, was also interested in the hypnagogic state. Some accounts suggest that he used a technique similar to Dalí's, holding a ball in his hand and allowing it to fall as he drifted towards sleep. The sound would wake him at the moment when he was beginning to enter sleep, and he would be able to recall the thoughts and images that had emerged in that transition. The hypnagogic state is also related to what is called the hypnopompic state, which is the mirror image of the hypnagogic state. The hypnopompic state is the transition from sleep to wakefulness. As you wake from sleep, as you transition from the sleeping brain back to the waking brain, you pass through a state that is similar to the hypnagogic state. You are partially conscious. You are beginning to become aware of the external world, but you are still partially immersed in the dream world. If you can maintain awareness during this transition, if you can observe your own awakening, you can capture the final images of your dreams before they fade completely. Many people report that their best dream recall occurs in the moments immediately after waking, when they are still in the hypnopompic state. If you try to remember your dreams, the best time to do so is immediately upon waking, before you have fully transitioned back into waking consciousness. At this moment, you are still partially in the dream state. The images are still fresh. Your brain is still in a state where the dream seems real and vivid. The practical application of understanding the hypnagogic and hypnopompic states is significant for anyone interested in enhancing their creativity. By deliberately attending to these transition states, by trying to maintain awareness while drifting towards sleep or while waking from sleep, you can access the creative imagery that emerges from your dreaming brain. You can observe your own mind's creative processes. You can capture ideas and images that would otherwise be lost in the transition between consciousness and unconsciousness. The technique does not require any special equipment or complicated procedure. It simply requires attention and intention. Before going to sleep, you can set an intention to observe your own transition into sleep. As you lie in bed and feel yourself beginning to drift, you can try to maintain a thin thread of awareness even as your body relaxes and your conscious mind releases. You might see images. You might experience fleeting thoughts or sensations. These are the raw materials of your creative potential, emerging from the depths of your mind. Similarly, when you wake in the morning, before you fully transition into waking consciousness, you can try to recall the dreams you have just experienced. You can observe the last images of your dreams before they fade. You can ask yourself what you were just experiencing. This practice, maintained consistently, can enhance your dream recall and your access to the creative potential of the dreaming state. Sleep cycles and creative peaks, timing your rest for maximum innovation. Your sleep is not uniform. It is not a continuous, unchanging state from the moment you close your eyes until the moment you wake. Instead, your sleep is organized into cycles, each lasting approximately 90 minutes, each progressing through distinct stages. Understanding these cycles, understanding how they progress through the night, is essential to understanding when and how your brain is most creative. Each sleep cycle begins with light sleep, the transition from wakefulness into sleep. Your brain begins to produce theta waves. Your body temperature begins to drop. Your muscles begin to relax. Your awareness of the external world begins to fade. This stage lasts only a few minutes. Then you enter deeper sleep, where your brain produces increasingly slow and large waves, delta waves. This is deep sleep, the stage where physical restoration occurs, where your body repairs tissue, where metabolic processes are optimized. Deep sleep is crucial to your physical well-being, but it is not the stage where creativity emerges. Deep sleep is the stage where your brain is most disconnected from the external world, most deeply unconscious. You are not dreaming during deep sleep, at least not in the way we typically understand dreaming. You are in a state of profound unconsciousness, but as the sleep cycle progresses, something changes. After approximately 30 to 40 minutes of deep sleep, your brain begins to lighten again. You move back toward lighter stages of sleep. Your brain begins to produce faster electrical activity. Then, approximately 70 to 80 minutes after you first fell asleep, you enter REM sleep. This is where the creative magic happens. During the first REM period of the night, you might only spend 5 to 10 minutes in REM sleep before you return to lighter sleep and begin another cycle. But as the night progresses, something important happens. The cycles do not reset completely. Instead, they progress in a pattern. Each successive cycle spends less time in deep sleep and more time in REM sleep. By the end of the night, by the time you are approaching waking, the cycles are spending very little time in deep sleep and very substantial time in REM sleep. This progression is not accidental. Your brain is strategically reserving the longest and most intense REM sleep for the end of the night. The final sleep cycle, the one that occurs just before you wake, might include 30 to 40 minutes of continuous REM sleep. This is when your brain is most deeply engaged in the creative reorganization of memory, in the formation of novel associations, in the generation of insights. This has profound implications for sleep and creativity. If you wake up after 6 or 7 hours of sleep, you are cutting short the very stage most essential to creative insight. You are depriving yourself of the extended REM sleep that occurs in the final sleep cycles. You are removing the time when your brain is most actively engaged in creative reorganization. This is why the common advice to just sleep 6 hours is so destructive to creativity. 6 hours of sleep is not a minor reduction from 8 hours. It is a substantial loss of the REM sleep that generates creative insights. You might be getting enough sleep to maintain basic functioning, but you are not getting enough to access your full creative potential. The optimal amount of sleep for creative potential is the amount that allows you to complete multiple full sleep cycles and to spend substantial time in the final REM periods. For most adults, this is 7 to 9 hours. Some people might need slightly less. Some might need slightly more, but the general principle is clear. You need enough sleep to experience the full progression of sleep cycles, including the extended REM sleep of the final cycles. There is also a practical consideration related to when you sleep. The timing of your sleep, the time of day when you sleep, affects the quality and characteristics of your sleep. Your brain operates according to a circadian rhythm, an internal biological clock that roughly follows a 24-hour cycle. This rhythm is influenced by light, by temperature, by your activity level, by your eating schedule. When you sleep in alignment with your circadian rhythm, when you sleep at the time your body expects to sleep, your sleep is deeper and your sleep cycles are more regular. Most humans are naturally inclined to sleep at night when it is dark and to be awake during the day when it is light. This circadian alignment is optimal for sleep quality. If you try to sleep at times that are misaligned with your circadian rhythm, your sleep is shallower, more fragmented, and less restorative. The sleep cycles are less regular. The progression from light sleep to deep sleep to REM sleep is disrupted. For creative work, this means that sleeping at the time when your body naturally expects to sleep is important. If you are trying to optimize your sleep for creativity, you should try to maintain a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed at approximately the same time each night and waking at approximately the same time each morning. This consistency allows your circadian rhythm to stabilize. Your sleep cycles become more regular. Your REM sleep becomes more robust. The relationship between sleep cycles and creative potential also has implications for the timing of creative work. If your goal is to maximize creativity, you might consider the timing of your most important creative work relative to your sleep schedule. Some research suggests that creative insight is often highest in the period immediately following sleep, when you are fresh from the neurological reorganization that occurs during sleep. Your brain has just consolidated memories, reorganized information, formed new associations. You are in an optimal state to have insights and to generate creative ideas. This suggests that important creative work might be best scheduled for the morning shortly after waking. Your brain is fresh from its night of reorganization. You have access to the insights that emerged from your sleep. Your mind is alert, but not yet fatigued by the day's demands. This is often when creative potential is highest. As the day progresses, as you expend mental energy on work and other activities, your creative capacity gradually diminishes. By evening, you are fatigued. Your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for higher-order thinking, is exhausted. Your creative capacity is lower. This is why many creative professionals report that their best ideas come in the morning and their afternoon is better spent on more routine, less creative work. Understanding sleep cycles and their progression through the night is thus crucial to optimizing your creative potential. It is not just about getting enough sleep. It is about understanding the structure of sleep, recognizing when your brain is most engaged in creative reorganization, and timing your sleep and your work accordingly. The wandering mind, default mode network, and spontaneous creative thought. Your brain is never truly idle. Even when you are not focused on any particular task, even when you are not thinking about anything in particular, your brain is active. It is engaged in a particular mode of operation that neuroscientists call the default mode. This mode is not the absence of thought. It is a specific type of thinking, characterized by mind wandering, by free association, by the spontaneous generation of thoughts and ideas that seem to arise without deliberate effort. The neural substrate of this default mode is called the default mode network. This is a set of interconnected brain regions that become active when you are not focused on the external world, when you are not engaged in a specific task. The primary regions of the default mode network include the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, the precuneus, and the angular gyrus. These regions are highly interconnected with each other. When one becomes active, the others tend to become active as well. Together, they form a network that supports mind-wandering, self-referential thinking, and the generation of spontaneous thoughts. The default mode network is active during many different states. It is active when you are daydreaming. It is active when you are reminiscing about the past or imagining the future. It is active when you are thinking about yourself or other people. It is active when you are engaged in creative thinking. In essence, whenever your brain is not focused on the immediate external environment, the default mode network is likely to be engaged. This network is particularly interesting for understanding creativity because it is the neural basis of mind wandering. And mind wandering is closely associated with creative thinking. When your mind wanders, when your thoughts drift without deliberate direction, your brain is making spontaneous associations. It is connecting ideas that are not logically related. It is generating unexpected thoughts and possibilities. This is precisely the kind of thinking that characterizes creativity. Research on the default mode network has revealed something surprising. The default mode network is more active in creative individuals than in less creative individuals. Creative people show stronger activation in the default mode network when they are engaged in creative tasks. They also show stronger connectivity between different regions of the default mode network. This suggests that the ability to activate and sustain the default mode network is related to creative capacity. Moreover, the default mode network is particularly active during REM sleep. When you are dreaming, the default mode network is highly engaged. Your brain is in a state of mind wandering even though you are asleep. You are making associations, generating ideas, experiencing thoughts and images that seem to arise spontaneously. The default mode network is the neural basis of this dreaming state. It is the mechanism by which your brain generates the free associations and unexpected combinations that characterize dreams. The relationship between the default mode network and creativity suggests something important about how to enhance your creative capacity. If mind wandering and the activation of the default mode network are associated with creative thinking, then deliberately allowing your mind to wander might enhance creativity. Rather than always maintaining focused attention, rather than always forcing your mind to concentrate on specific tasks, you might benefit from allowing your mind to wander, from giving your default mode network time to be active. This is one of the reasons that many creative people report that their best ideas come not during focused work, but during periods of relaxation or distraction. Ideas emerge during a walk, during a shower, during a drive, during any activity that does not require intense focus. During these activities, your default mode network is active. Your mind is wandering. Your brain is making spontaneous associations. Ideas are emerging. The challenge in modern life is that we are constantly engaged in focused attention. We are working on tasks. We are responding to emails. We are scrolling through our phones. We are consuming media. We are rarely allowing our minds to simply wander. We are rarely giving our default mode network the space to be active. And in doing so, we might be suppressing our creative capacity. Sleep is one of the most important times when the default mode network can be active without the constraints of waking consciousness. During sleep, your brain is not trying to maintain focus on the external world. It is not trying to accomplish specific tasks. It is free to let the default mode network operate without constraint. This is part of what makes sleep so crucial to creativity. Sleep is when your brain can engage in the kind of spontaneous, associative thinking that characterizes the default mode network. But the default mode network can also be active during waking hours, allowing your mind to wander, taking breaks from focused work, engaging in activities that do not require intense concentration. All of these can allow the default mode network to be active. Many creative people have learned to incorporate mind-wandering time into their creative practice. They take walks. They allow their minds to drift. They engage in activities that are not directly related to their creative work, but that allow their minds to wander and make spontaneous associations. The relationship between the default mode network and sleep also suggests something about dreams. Dreams are not simply the random firing of neurons, as was once believed. Dreams are the expression of the default mode network in action. Your dreaming brain is engaged in the kind of mind-wandering and free association that the default mode network specializes in. Your dreams are your brain's way of allowing the default mode network to operate without the constraints of wakefulness. Understanding the default mode network and its role in creativity suggests that both sleep and waking mind-wandering are important to creative capacity. You need sleep to allow the default mode network to operate in the neurochemical state of REM sleep, where creative associations are particularly robust. But you also need to allow your mind to wander during waking hours, to give your default mode network time to be active, to generate the spontaneous thoughts and ideas that characterize creativity. Memory threads and novel connections, how sleep weaves disparate ideas together. Imagine your mind as a vast tapestry, woven from countless threads of memory and experience. Each thread is a memory, a piece of knowledge, an experience you have had. When you are awake, you are aware of the tapestry as a whole, but you are focused on particular threads. You are attending to specific memories or specific knowledge relevant to your current task. Most of the threads remain in the background, out of conscious awareness. But during sleep, something remarkable happens. Your brain begins to explore the connections between these threads. It begins to weave them together in new patterns. Threads that were previously separate, that had no obvious connection, begin to touch. They begin to intertwine. New patterns emerge from the recombination of old threads. This weaving together of disparate threads is the mechanism by which sleep generates creative insight. The process begins with memory consolidation, as we discussed earlier. During sleep, memories from the day are transferred from the hippocampus to the cortex, where they are integrated with existing knowledge. But this integration is not a simple process of adding new information to a filing system. It is a process of reorganization. Your brain is asking, how does this new information relate to what I already know? Where does it fit? What patterns does it suggest? What connections can be made? This process of finding connections is particularly active during REM sleep. During REM sleep, your brain is in a state that favors associative thinking. The neurochemical state of REM sleep, as we discussed, includes high acetylcholine, low norepinephrine, and low serotonin. This combination creates a state where your brain makes associations based on emotional resonance and loose connection, rather than logical necessity. Your brain is asking, what goes together? What has emotional resonance? What can be combined? The associative thinking of REM sleep is different from the logical thinking of wakefulness. When you are awake and thinking logically, you follow rules of inference. If A is true and B follows from A, then B must be true. Your thinking is constrained by logic. But during REM sleep, your thinking is not constrained by logic. Your brain is free to make associations based on any connection whatsoever. If A and B both evoke a certain emotion, they might be connected in your dreaming mind. If A and B share a visual quality, they might be linked. If A and B have a shared element, no matter how obscure, they might be woven together. This freedom to make associations without logical constraint is what allows creative recombination. Creativity requires the ability to combine ideas in ways that logic would not suggest. A scientist might need to combine insights from biology and physics to solve a problem. A musician might need to combine elements from different musical traditions. An artist might need to combine visual elements in ways that violate conventional composition. None of these combinations would be suggested by logic. They emerge from association, from the recognition of connections that are not logically necessary, but are creatively powerful. During REM sleep, your brain is making exactly these kinds of associative connections. It is exploring the space of possible connections between your memories and knowledge. It is weaving threads together in novel patterns. Most of these connections will be forgotten upon waking. Your dreams are filled with strange combinations and impossible scenarios that you forget immediately upon waking. But some of these connections, the ones that are most emotionally significant or most relevant to your current concerns, will be consolidated. They will remain accessible after you wake. This is why it helps to focus on a particular problem or area of interest before sleep. When you focus your conscious attention on something, you signal to your brain that this is important. During sleep, your brain will prioritize the exploration of connections related to that area of interest. Your brain will weave together threads related to that problem. When you wake, you will have access to the novel connections your brain has made. The process of weaving disparate ideas together is also enhanced by the breadth of your knowledge. The more threads you have in your tapestry, the more possible connections can be made. A person with broad knowledge, who has learned from many different domains, has more potential connections to explore. Their brain has more threads to weave together. This is why many creative individuals are broadly educated. They have knowledge from multiple domains. and their sleeping brains can make connections between these domains. This also suggests something about how to enhance your creative capacity. Reading widely, learning from diverse domains, exposing yourself to ideas and knowledge from many different fields, all of this increases the number of threads in your mental tapestry. When you sleep, your brain will have more opportunities to make novel connections. You will have more potential for creative recombination. The threading together of disparate ideas is also influenced by emotion. Your brain prioritizes the consolidation of emotionally significant information. If you care deeply about something, if something has emotional resonance for you, your brain will work on it during sleep. Your brain will explore connections related to it. This is why creative people often report that their best ideas come in areas where they have emotional investment. They care about the problem. They have emotional engagement with the domain. This emotional engagement signals to their brain that this is important. Their sleeping brain works on it. The novel connections that emerge from sleep are not random combinations. They are not just mixing things together without purpose. They are combinations that make sense, that have coherence, that illuminate understanding. This is because even though your brain is not following logical rules during REM sleep, it is following other principles. It is following principles of emotional resonance, of pattern recognition, of the integration of new information with existing knowledge. When threads are woven together according to these principles, the resulting combinations, though not logically necessary, often have a kind of intuitive rightness. They feel correct, they illuminate, they create new understanding. Emotional processing during sleep. Why feelings fuel. Creative expression. Your emotions are not separate from your creativity. They are intimately intertwined. The most powerful creative works, the ones that move people, that resonate across time, are the ones that express genuine emotion. And the emotional processing that occurs during sleep is central to this creative expression. During sleep, particularly during REM sleep, your brain is not just reorganizing memories and consolidating information. It is processing emotions. It is working through feelings. It is integrating emotional experiences with your understanding of the world. During REM sleep, brain regions associated with emotion become highly active. The amygdala, which processes emotional significance, shows heightened activity. The anterior cingulate cortex, involved in emotional processing and attention, is engaged. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which is involved in emotional evaluation and decision-making, shows robust activity. Meanwhile, the regions responsible for logical analysis and critical judgment are relatively quiet. This means that during REM sleep, your brain is prioritizing emotional processing over logical analysis. This prioritization is not a flaw, it is a feature. Emotions are not obstacles to clear thinking. Emotions are essential to creative expression. Emotions provide the motivation to create. Emotions provide the content of creative work. Emotions guide the evaluation of creative ideas. A piece of art that is technically perfect, but emotionally empty, is not moving. A scientific insight that is logically sound, but emotionally disconnected from human concerns, is not compelling. Creativity, at its deepest level, is about expressing and communicating emotion. During REM sleep, your brain is processing the emotional experiences of your life. It is integrating new emotional experiences with emotional memories from the past. It is extracting emotional meaning from experiences. It is making connections between emotionally similar experiences, even if they are separated by time or context. This emotional processing is crucial to emotional understanding and emotional growth, but this emotional processing is also crucial to creative expression. When you process emotions during sleep, when your brain integrates emotional experiences with emotional memories, you develop a deeper understanding of emotion. You develop the capacity to express emotion in more nuanced and sophisticated ways. You develop the ability to recognize emotional patterns and emotional truths that might not be obvious in the moment. This is why many artists report that their creative work emerges from emotional experience. A writer might experience a strong emotion, and that emotion becomes the seed of a story. A musician might experience an emotional state, and that state becomes the inspiration for a composition. A visual artist might feel something deeply, and that feeling drives their visual exploration. But the creative work is not simply a direct expression of the emotion. It is a processed, refined, integrated expression of the emotion, informed by the emotional processing that occurs during sleep. The emotional processing of sleep also influences the themes and content of your dreams. Your dreams are often expressions of emotional concerns. If you are anxious about something, your dreams might express that anxiety in various forms. If you are excited about something, your dreams might explore that excitement. If you are grieving something, your dreams might process that grief. Your dreams are your brain's way of working through emotions. This emotional processing in dreams can be profoundly creative. Your brain, in dreams, finds new ways to express emotions, new metaphors for emotional states, new narratives that capture emotional truth. Many artists have found that paying attention to their dreams, recording their dreams, reflecting on their dreams, provides rich material for creative work. The emotional honesty of dreams, the way dreams express what you truly feel without the constraints of social appropriateness, makes dreams a valuable source of creative material. The relationship between emotional processing and creativity also suggests something about how to enhance creative expression. If emotional processing is important to creativity, then attending to your emotional life, reflecting on your emotions, allowing yourself to feel deeply, all of this can enhance your creativity. You are providing your brain with richer emotional material to process during sleep. You are giving your brain more emotional content to work with. This can lead to more emotionally resonant creative expression. It also suggests that allowing yourself to experience the full range of emotions, including difficult emotions like sadness, anger, and fear, is important to creative development. Some people try to suppress difficult emotions to maintain a positive mood at all times. But difficult emotions contain important information. They contain content that is valuable to creative expression. When you suppress difficult emotions, you are also suppressing potential creative material. When you allow yourself to feel difficult emotions, when you process them during sleep, you are enriching your creative potential. The emotional processing of sleep is also related to what psychologists call emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is the ability to manage your emotions, to respond to emotions in healthy ways, to integrate emotional experiences into your understanding of yourself and the world. During REM sleep, your brain is engaging in emotional regulation. It is processing emotions in a way that allows you to integrate them and move forward. This emotional regulation, this integration of emotional experience, is part of what allows creative growth. The paradox of lucid dreaming. Conscious creativity in the sleeping state. There exists a remarkable state of consciousness that is neither fully waking nor fully sleeping. In this state, you are dreaming, but you are aware that you are dreaming. You are experiencing the vivid, emotionally intense associative world of dreams, but you retain conscious awareness of the fact that you are in a dream. You can observe your dreams. You can reflect on them. You can even, to some extent, direct them. This state is called lucid dreaming, and it represents a unique opportunity for creative exploration. Lucid dreaming is not rare or pathological. Most people have experienced it at least occasionally. In a lucid dream, you suddenly realize that you are dreaming. You might notice something impossible or illogical, and this realization triggers the awareness that you are in a dream. Once you have this awareness, you can begin to explore the dream deliberately. You can ask questions. You can test the boundaries of the dream. You can attempt to direct the dream, to change elements of it, to explore possibilities. The neurological basis of lucid dreaming is fascinating. During a normal REM dream, your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for self-awareness and metacognition, is relatively quiet. You are not thinking about your thinking. You are not aware that you are dreaming. But during a lucid dream, the prefrontal cortex shows increased activity compared to a normal REM dream. You have regained some of the self-awareness and metacognitive capacity that is characteristic of wakefulness, but you have retained the associative and imaginative capacities of REM sleep. This combination creates a unique state of consciousness. You have the logical, self-aware capacities of wakefulness, but you also have the associative, imaginative capacities of sleep. You can think about what you are experiencing, but you are still experiencing the vivid imagery and free association of dreams. This makes lucid dreaming a powerful tool for creative exploration. In a lucid dream, you can pose problems to your dreaming mind and observe how your mind responds. You can ask questions that your conscious mind has not been able to answer, and you can observe the creative responses your dreaming mind generates. You can experiment with ideas, with images, with narratives, without the constraints of logic or social appropriateness. You can observe how your brain combines ideas, how it generates imagery, how it makes connections. Many creative individuals throughout history have been aware of the creative potential of lucid dreaming. Some have deliberately cultivated the ability to lucid dream. The psychologist William James wrote about his experiences with lucid dreaming and the creative insights that emerged from them. Contemporary artists and scientists have also reported using lucid dreaming as a tool for creative exploration. The practical approach to lucid dreaming typically involves developing dream awareness. You practice reflecting on your dreams. You ask yourself throughout the day, am I dreaming? You notice anomalies and impossibilities in your waking life. When you apply this habit to your dreams, you eventually notice anomalies in dreams as well. When you notice something impossible or illogical in a dream, you realize that you must be dreaming. This realization triggers the lucid state. Once you have achieved lucidity, you can use the lucid dream state for creative exploration. You might pose a creative problem and observe how your dreaming mind approaches it. You might ask your dreaming mind to show you solutions to problems you have been struggling with. You might explore visual possibilities, narrative possibilities, musical possibilities within the lucid dream. The paradox of lucid dreaming is that it combines the conscious awareness and control of wakefulness with the creative freedom and associative capacity of sleep. This combination allows for a unique kind of creative exploration. You are not constrained by the logic of wakefulness, but you are aware enough to observe and remember what you experience. You can be creative without the constraints of logic, and you can also reflect on your creativity. However, there is also a potential pitfall. Lucid dreaming, by introducing conscious control into the dream state, introduces some of the constraints of waking consciousness. When you are trying to control your dreams, you are engaging your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for control and planning. This engagement might reduce the associative, spontaneous creativity that characterizes normal REM sleep. In other words, the more you try to control your dreams, the more you might suppress the very creative potential you are trying to access. This suggests that lucid dreaming might be most useful not when you are trying to directly control your dreams, but when you are using lucid awareness to observe and remember your dreams. Rather than trying to direct the dream, you might use lucid awareness to pay close attention to what your dreaming mind is generating. You observe the images, the associations, the connections that your brain is making. You remember them. You bring them back to waking consciousness. In this way, you gain access to the creative output of your dreaming brain without suppressing the spontaneous creativity that makes the dream state so valuable. The paradox of lucid dreaming is thus not a contradiction, but a balance. The most creative use of lucid dreaming might not be the direct control of dreams, but the conscious observation of dreams, the retention of dream content, the integration of dream creativity with waking reflection. Optimizing your sleep architecture, practical rhythms for the creative mind. Understanding the neuroscience of sleep and creativity is valuable, but the real value emerges when this understanding is translated into practical changes to how you sleep. Optimizing your sleep architecture, aligning your sleep with your body's natural rhythms, creating conditions that allow for the deep REM sleep that generates creative insights. These are practical approaches that anyone can implement. The goal is not to become a sleep expert, but to honor your sleep in ways that allow your creative potential to emerge. The first principle is consistency. Your brain operates according to a circadian rhythm, an internal biological clock that roughly follows a 24-hour cycle. When you maintain a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed at approximately the same time each night and waking at approximately the same time each morning, you allow your circadian rhythm to stabilize. Your sleep becomes deeper, your sleep cycles become more regular. Your REM sleep becomes more robust. Consistency is one of the most powerful tools for optimizing sleep. This means choosing a bedtime that allows you to get sufficient sleep, while also aligning with your natural sleep tendency. Some people are naturally early risers, waking early in the morning. Others are naturally night owls, preferring to sleep later. There is no universally correct sleep schedule. The correct schedule is the one that aligns with your natural circadian rhythm and allows you to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Once you have determined the schedule that works for you, consistency is key. Try to maintain this schedule even on weekends. The second principle is sleep environment. Your sleep environment should be optimized to promote sleep and to allow for deep, uninterrupted sleep. This means your bedroom should be dark. Light, even dim light, can interfere with sleep. If your bedroom receives light from outside, consider blackout curtains. If there are lights from electronic devices, cover them or remove them from the bedroom. Your brain's production of melatonin, the hormone that promotes sleep, is suppressed by light. Darkness promotes melatonin production and facilitates sleep. Your bedroom should also be cool. Body temperature drops during sleep, and a cool environment facilitates this temperature drop. Most sleep research suggests that a temperature around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is optimal for sleep. If your bedroom is too warm, your sleep will be disrupted. If it is too cool, you might feel uncomfortable, but the discomfort is often easier to address with blankets than the disruption caused by excessive heat. Your bedroom should be quiet or have consistent, non-startling sounds. Sudden noises can disrupt sleep. If you live in a noisy environment, consider white noise machines or earplugs to mask disruptive sounds. Some people sleep better with consistent background noise, like a fan or white noise, which masks more disruptive sounds. Your bedroom should also be a place primarily for sleep. Avoid working in bed. Avoid watching screens in bed. Avoid engaging in stressful activities in bed. Your brain learns to associate your bed with wakefulness and activity if you regularly do these things in bed. By reserving your bed primarily for sleep, you strengthen the association between your bed and sleep. The third principle is pre-sleep routine. Establishing a consistent routine before bed signals to your brain that sleep is coming. This allows your brain to begin its transition towards sleep. A good pre-sleep routine might include relaxing activities like reading, gentle stretching, meditation, or breathing exercises. It should avoid stimulating activities like intense exercise, stressful work, or engaging with screens. Screens emit blue light, which can suppress melatonin production and interfere with sleep. Try to avoid screens for at least 30 minutes to an hour before bed. Some people find that a warm bath or shower before bed is helpful. The drop in body temperature after the bath can facilitate the natural temperature drop that occurs during sleep. Others find that reading a physical book is a good way to wind down. The key is finding activities that feel relaxing and restorative to you, and maintaining these activities consistently before bed. The fourth principle is managing caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine is a stimulant that can interfere with sleep, even many hours after consumption. Avoid caffeine, particularly in the afternoon and evening. Alcohol might make you feel sleepy initially, but it interferes with sleep quality, particularly REM sleep. Avoid alcohol close to bedtime. The fifth principle is exercise. Regular physical exercise promotes better sleep. Exercise improves sleep quality and increases the time spent in deep sleep and REM sleep. However, intense exercise close to bedtime can be stimulating and can interfere with sleep. Try to exercise earlier in the day or at least a few hours before bed. The sixth principle is managing stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety activate your nervous system and make it difficult to fall asleep. If you find that stress is interfering with your sleep, consider stress reduction practices like meditation, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or other techniques that help calm your nervous system. Some people find that journaling before bed, writing down worries and concerns, helps to clear their mind for sleep. The seventh principle is napping strategically. If you find that you are sleep deprived, a short nap can provide some benefit. A 20-minute nap can enhance alertness and creativity. A 90-minute nap, long enough to include a full REM cycle, can provide more substantial benefits. However, napping in the afternoon can interfere with nighttime sleep. If you nap, do so early in the afternoon, not in the evening. The eighth principle is being patient with implementation. Sleep optimization is not an overnight process. It takes time for your circadian rhythm to stabilize, for your body to adjust to a new schedule, for sleep quality to improve. Be patient with yourself. Maintain consistency for at least 2 to 3 weeks before evaluating whether changes are helping. Small, consistent changes are more sustainable than dramatic overhauls. The eternal cycle, where sleep ends and genius begins again. We have journeyed together through the landscape of sleep and creativity, exploring the electrical patterns of the sleeping brain, the neurochemistry of dreams, the historical figures who consciously cultivated sleep for innovation, the mechanisms by which sleep consolidates memory and generates insight. We have examined the hypnagogic visions of Dalí, the sleep cycles that progress through the night, the default mode network that generates spontaneous thought, the weaving together of disparate ideas, the emotional processing that fuels creative expression. We have explored the paradox of lucid dreaming and the practical approaches to optimizing sleep architecture. But now we must consider the larger cycle, the eternal rhythm that connects sleep and wakefulness, that links the nighttime work of your dreaming brain with the daytime expression of your creative genius. This cycle is not linear. It is not a simple progression from sleep to wakefulness to sleep again. It is a spiral, a continuous movement through states of consciousness that builds upon itself, that deepens and develops, that creates the conditions for genuine creative growth. When you wake from sleep, you wake with a brain that has been reorganized. Your memories have been consolidated. New connections have been formed. Novel associations have been made. You have insights that were not available to you before sleep. Your brain is in a state of readiness for creative work. This is why the period immediately after waking is often optimal for creative expression. Your mind is fresh from its night of reorganization. Your creative networks are activated. Ideas flow more readily. As you engage in creative work during the day, as you work with the insights that emerge from sleep, you are also gathering new material for your sleeping brain to work with. Every experience you have, every idea you encounter, every problem you wrestle with becomes material for your sleeping brain to process. You are feeding your dreams. You are giving your brain new threads to weave together during the next night's sleep. This is why breadth of experience is so valuable to creativity. The more diverse your experiences, the more knowledge you accumulate, the more perspectives you encounter, the more material you provide for your sleeping brain to work with. Your brain, during sleep, will have more threads to weave, more connections to explore, more possibilities to generate. When you wake the next morning, you will have more insights, more novel ideas, more creative potential. But there is also something deeper happening in this cycle. As you engage in creative work, as you express the insights that emerged from sleep, you are also engaging emotionally with your work. You are investing yourself in it. You are bringing your feelings, your values, your concerns to your creative expression. This emotional engagement signals to your brain that this work is important. During the next night's sleep, your brain will prioritize the processing of information related to this work. Your brain will work on the problems you are wrestling with. Your brain will explore the creative possibilities you are considering. Over time, this cycle deepens. Night after night, your brain works on your creative projects. Day after day, you express the insights that emerge from this work. Night after night, your brain processes the new experiences and challenges that arise from your daytime work. The cycle spirals. Your creative capacity grows. Your understanding deepens. Your work becomes richer, more nuanced, more powerful. This is how genuine creative development occurs. It is not the result of a single night of inspired dreams or a single day of intense work. It is the result of the consistent, ongoing cycle of sleep and wakefulness, of nighttime processing and daytime expression, of the continuous integration of new experience with existing knowledge. It is the result of honoring both the conscious and unconscious work of your mind. The implications of this understanding are profound. It means that if you want to develop your creative potential, you must take sleep seriously. You must give your brain the time and the conditions it needs to perform its nighttime reorganization. You must respect the rhythm of sleep and wakefulness. You must understand that the night is not lost time. The night is when your most important creative work occurs. It also means that you must engage fully with your daytime creative work. You must not simply wait for insights to emerge from sleep. You must actively work with the insights that do emerge. You must wrestle with problems. You must gather new experiences. You must deepen your knowledge. You must invest emotionally in your creative projects. In doing so, you are feeding the cycle. You are providing your sleeping brain with material to work with. You are ensuring that your next night's sleep will be productive, that new insights will emerge, that your creative potential will continue to develop. The eternal cycle of sleep and creativity is thus not something that happens to you. It is something that you actively participate in. You have agency in this process. You can choose to honor your sleep. You can choose to engage fully with your creative work. You can choose to gather diverse experiences and knowledge. You can choose to invest emotionally in what matters to you. In making these choices, you are not just optimizing your sleep. You are actively cultivating your creative genius. And here is perhaps the most important insight. The genius is not something you are born with. The genius is something you develop. It is the result of consistent engagement with the cycle of sleep and wakefulness, of the ongoing dialogue between your conscious and unconscious mind. Every night, your brain has the potential to generate creative insights. Every morning, you have the opportunity to express those insights. Every evening, you have the chance to feed your sleeping brain with new material. This is how genius emerges, not as a gift, but as a practice, not as an exception, but as a natural result of honoring the rhythms that your brain is designed to follow. The question that remains is simple. Will you honor these rhythms? Will you give your brain the sleep it needs? Will you engage fully with your creative potential? Will you participate actively in the eternal cycle of sleep and creativity? The potential is there, waiting in every night's sleep, in every dream, in every moment when your brain is reorganizing itself, exploring new possibilities, weaving together the threads of your life into patterns of genuine innovation and creative expression. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the neuroscience of sleep and creativity. If this exploration has brought you insight into your own mind, if it has sparked your curiosity about the remarkable processes occurring in your brain each night, I would deeply appreciate a like and a subscription to Relaxing Science. Your support helps us continue to create content that explores the intersection of science and human potential. I would also love to know, where are you listening from? What time is it in your world right now? And more importantly, what creative projects are you working on that you hope will benefit from better sleep? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us build a community of people who understand that sleep is not the enemy of productivity, but the foundation of genius. Let us celebrate the remarkable work that occurs in the sleeping mind, and let us commit to honoring the rhythms that allow our creativity to flourish. As you drift towards sleep tonight, remember this: your brain is about to perform extraordinary work. It is about to reorganize your memories, consolidate your learning, generate novel ideas, explore creative possibilities. You are about to engage in the most sophisticated thinking your brain can do. Sleep well, knowing that your genius is at work in the darkness. And when you wake tomorrow, greet the day with the insights and creative potential that only a well-rested mind can provide. The cycle continues, eternal and profound, as long as you choose to honor it. End of screenplay. Total.